So, how much damage has the raid done to Israel and to the Middle East peace efforts? Joining me now to discuss all this is Johnathan Sacerdoti from the Zionist Federation and Ghadi from the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. Welcome, both of you. Dr. Karmi, Israel had asked the flotilla to dock at Ashdod. All but one of the flotilla, the Mavi Marmara, had refused to do so. To what extent do you believe those on board this ship were being deliberately provocative in terms of their actions against the Israeli?
Well, I've been hearing this Israeli spin all day, and frankly, I find it incredibly depressing that any platform has been given to Israeli spokesmen to talk in this way. And it is shameful that after having killed 10 innocent people, the Israelis are still going around spinning the story about provocations and being attacked and so on and so forth.
Well, they have the right of explanation.
But we, the international community, all the rest of us, have the right to know what really happened. Now, all we've had is the Israeli account, and of course it's been very interesting that they have prevented the people that they have apprehended and taken away and put in jail. They prevented them from talking, so we don't actually know what really happened, and the Israeli version has been given an awful lot of an airing, which it didn't merit at all. Now, what we have to look at here is not what the Israeli spin is. Of course they're going to spin a story, they always do. What we have to look at is the fundamentals in this situation. The fundamentals were that a humanitarian mission was on its way.
We know the fundamentals.
Indeed. Allow me just to finish. A humanitarian mission was then interrupted by a military attack.
Okay, let's go straight to Johnathan Sacerdoti. Why such a strong and an aggressive military attack?
There wasn't a strong and aggressive military attack until the troops that had previously requested for the flotilla ships to divert to Ashdod, so that if their main aim really had been humanitarian aid and providing humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza, they would have followed those instructions, as 5 of the 6 flotilla ships did, you quite rightly just pointed out. The 6th absolutely declined to do so and declined repeated warnings that it was about to enter a blockaded area where there was a known naval blockade. What happens in those circumstances is that the Navy gets involved. That would happen almost anywhere in the world. If you're about to enter an area with a known naval blockade, that's what will happen. The troops that then did get involved were instructed to use only the paintball guns that they were provided with as they were lowered onto the ship, and as what they were expecting were anarchists, not terrorists. What they received when they got to the bottom of the rope, moving down onto that ship with a briefing to try to speak to the people on the ship and convince them to move to Ashdod like all their other comrades had done, was a beating, the likes of which is quite extraordinary to see. And you've been showing it yourselves here on Al Jazeera.
Once again, Israel is accused of using disproportionate force. This isn't the first time Israel has been accused of this, and it seems the whole world is looking at pictures and looking at the convoy and saying, Israel, once again, you've overreacted. And why, for example, didn't the troops have non-lethal means for confronting protesters?
Well, Stephen, they did have non-lethal means. They had paintball guns. The only yes, because what happened when they attempted to use the paintball guns, which are a regular form of munition, which is not live fire, to be used for protesters and people who aren't posing a life-threatening threat towards you, they conducted themselves initially only using these non-lethal weapons. It was when they had stun grenades, as could be seen from the footage you've shown yourself from the IDF, here on Al Jazeera and on all the other news channels, I've seen it, when stun grenades, even a live grenade, and there has been some mention of live fire aimed at them, when that was used against them, Johnathan, they were then given permission to use live fire.
Dr. Karmi, the Israelis were only reacting to the force used against them.
Well, if you believe that, Johnathan, you'll believe anything.
Well, I've seen it on the footage. We've all seen it on the footage that's going out even on Al Jazeera 5 minutes ago, Dr. Karmi.
Israel is extremely successful at diverting the issue. It's now thrown dust in everybody. Everybody's saying, did they do this? Did they brandish a weapon? Did they?
But that's much better than jumping to conclusions, which is what results in an unfair treatment of the situation.
Good. I understand where you're coming from, and I know you must defend Israel. But let me just point out.
No, I must defend the truth. That's what I'm here to do.
No. But listen to the truth then. The truth is that Israel has no right to intercept these vessels because Israel's blockade of Gaza is illegal. Repeat, illegal.
No, what is illegal is launching of weaponry from Gaza into civilian
there's all kinds of questions being asked about the legality, especially of intercepting a ship in international waters.
Right,
Dr. Karmi, make your point.
That's not dubious.
My point is that the blockade is illegal, that Israeli actions are not only illegal, but they are criminal, and they really have to be taken into account.
Because
okay,
Israel
Jonathan,
provides,
answer that. Because what we're talking about here is, as I said to you just a few seconds in my question before about disproportionate, and once again Israel's reputation is under fire, under attack from all over the world, not least the United Nations.
And of course, people who speak out for Israel hear that. It's unfortunate that that can be the case. But what Israel's primary concern is the safety of its citizens. Now, from Gaza, routinely, rockets are launched into Israeli civilian areas. I mean, just in the last month, something like 10 rockets in May have been launched. And the point of the military blockade, of the naval blockade, is that previously ships have sailed to Gaza carrying weapons and these very rockets that are fired to Israel from Syria, from Iran, and that is why there is a military blockade in place. That's why there's a naval blockade. Israel, however, was very happy to allow these ships in the flotilla to unload their goods under their supervision and then transfer it through the accepted land crossings where every week 15,000 tons of goods enter into Gaza, and that kind of humanitarian aid is what Israel is happy to let in. Now, of course, there'll be discussion over exactly what that should include and what that shouldn't include, and Israel is very happy, as it has done, to engage with the international community to ensure that the Gazan people shouldn't be the ones suffering. Israel is not at war with the Gazan people. It's at war with the Hamas regime.
All right.
The Hamas regime is the one that is making life for the Gazans
Jonathan's point, Dr. Karmi, is they're guarding Israel against attacks from Gaza, and this ship could have provided weapons for Hamas and used to attack Israel. That's the Israeli point.
Yes, no, I understand that, and I know the Israelis will say this kind of thing, but of course we know what the situation of Gaza is. We know that this territory has been subjected to a siege which has led to severe malnutrition, to semi-starvation of adults, to dirty water, to you name it. That's the situation in Gaza. And any responsible agency should now look at this and say, look, Israel is clearly out of control. We have to do something in order to enable not only the people of Gaza to live, but for there to be a rule of law in this region. Now, it's obvious that world bodies, we've been seeing, hearing all day, the United Nations, the European Union, the British government, everybody is concerned about this issue, is not in favor of what Israel has done. They have condemned Israel, as you know very well. And they're doing that because they see that Israel is out of control.
Israel out of control, Johnathan?
No, Israel is also concerned about the welfare of the Palestinians, but primarily its concern has to be the safety of its own people. And the point of the blockade in the military area
does it show its concern for the Palestinians?
By allowing 15,000 tons of aid to cross across the border,
by allowing people to starve,
by offering that's not allowing people to starve, by offering to the flotilla of ships who claimed that their aim was to bring humanitarian aid to the area, to transfer all of that aid, as long as it had been examined so that there was nothing which could be used for munitions, to transfer it. And Egypt offered the same, so did the Israelis if it was diverted to Ashdod. And 5 of those ships peacefully accepted to do that, and that is what's happening with their cargo. This 6th ship was manned with people whose aim was not to bring aid to the Gazan people. Their aim was to support the Hamas regime, which has a declared genocidal war on the state of Israel and the Jewish people, and their aim was to fight the soldiers who would inevitably have to land on the ship if they did not divert their course. And that is what they did.
They were very big generalization saying everybody on board that ship.
I'm not saying everybody on board that ship was. I am saying that the nature of the people on that ship was such that they did not listen, whether it's those in charge or all of the people, I can't say. And none of us can yet, but there was certainly a strain on that ship who stopped it. That ship did not follow suit, as the other 5 did, and do what was the reasonable thing to provide aid for the people of Gaza.
Dr. Karmi?
Well, you know, honestly, please allow me just to say, I find it very difficult to engage in this kind of conversation, because my colleague here, who I'm sure is perfectly sensible, is deliberately re-spinning for us this story that Israel has put up.
We don't want to discuss as they are on the ground.
We do not want to discuss the spin that Israel has put out.
It's not spin. Just because you disagree with it, it's not spin. Because it doesn't suit your narrative doesn't make it spin.
This is a serious situation. Please,
very much so.
Please show some respect.
All right.
10 people have been killed.
Dr.
Show
this is
some
a tragedy.
respect for
Dr.
that.
Karmi and
Johnathan
Johnathan Sacerdoti, this could last a lot longer. Indeed, there will still be questions tonight and tomorrow being asked, I'm sure. For the moment, thank you both very much.
Thank you.